be live. And now we are live. I'm getting a nod that I am live. So here we are, dealing with a number of different technical issues. And my computer might also just explode because it's done strange things over the past couple of weeks. So who knows? It might last, it might not. I think it's something to do with Mercury that one. You know what I'm talking about. So we are doing it in a strange way today. Here I am, all on my own, flying solo, holding back the tears, but we're doing okay. So, what do you want to talk about, people? This is, well, how do I put this? I haven't got anything planned to talk about today, so I'm going to basically go to what I know and ask you nice people out there in internet land what you would like to know about Druidry. Do you have any questions? If you do, please ask them. Because of the technical issues, I had some pictures that I was going to bring up, but we can't do that now. So I'm going to run over to my bookshelf. Apophyllite. Well, I do know that's got nothing to do with Druidry. Apophyllite, astrophyllite, apophyllite. Now, which one did I get a few weeks back? Apophyllite isn't one that I don't have any of. It's only one that I've come across cursorily. I think that's English. I'm not quite sure. So at the moment, I can't really answer a question about apophyllite particularly well because it's not one that I'm very familiar with, and I don't want to say things that are foolish. So rather than answer that one, now if you'd have said astrophyllite, that would have been a different matter because I got a piece of that a little while ago. Yes, it's a completely different stone, but it's quite an interesting one. So, Margaret, how about that one? Would that one be okay? Say something. Okay, nodding. Yes, that one's okay. So, astrophyllite. That's quite an interesting one. The name translates from the Greek from star and leaf. Actually, it literally translates to star leaf. And again, one of those for me, it's a particularly cosmic stone with lots of cosmic energy and cosmic connections, to the star people in the universe. So that's quite an interesting one and quite a nice one to work with, especially if you're looking for those cosmic connections. So that's a fun one. What other questions do we have? Any yet? What about Catus crystal quartz or bismuth? Catus, that is a new term for me. I've never heard that in my life. Where does that come from? But bismuth, again, it's not one that's attracted me. I know it's lab grown. There are certain, I think, examples out and about in the world that are natural, but it's more of a lab grown crystal. So it's got more of a a scientific feel to it, more of a logical element to it, if that makes any sense to you. But if you were talking about crystal quartz itself, I still don't know what the catus means, but crystal quartz, quartz crystal, rock crystal, in all its forms, is just one of the most joyful things in the whole world. Oh, cactus. Ah, right. No, that makes sense. That makes more sense. Cactus quartz. There's also another name for it, spirit quartz. It's got these the little terminations all over. Wait there, and I'll go and get a beat. Don't go anywhere. So, here we go. Cactus quartz or spirit quartz. I prefer the name spirit quartz because it's more fun. It's got these, as you can see, all the little terminations covering the whole of the piece. It's a fantastic piece. It's a specific formation over and above your normal tumble stones and everything. It really connects really powerfully for me. I mean, this piece here, this one's actually an amethyst. It's got amethyst within it as well. You can't see it very well on the thing, but I think you can just grab it. For me, all the connections that it can make with all the, it's reaching out in all directions. If I relate it similarly to a sphere, when you're working with spheres, that energy comes evenly from all directions. These reach out, as in, sorry, I'm using my hands and you can't see them, they're over here. These kind of reach out to where they need to connect to, or to, if you're working with them, what you need to connect to in lots of different ways, lots of different elements. So yeah, spirit quartz. Cactus quartz is a good name, but I do like spirit quartz. Yes, exactly. I mean, this is the thing with stones and crystals, they all call to you. You just have to be open to hearing them. They do shout at me quite a lot all the time, especially when I'm outside on the beach. There's all these stones everywhere. Morning, Tracy. How are you? It's good to see you. Does Tracy have any questions for me? Jocelyn, questions? Anything? Let's just, otherwise I'm just going to be rambling nonsensically. So where was I? Yeah, so spirit quartz. I do prefer the name. It's a fabulous, fabulous piece. What else? Any other questions? Because my brain is just ask me things today, because I don't know anything at the moment what to talk about.
Mervyn.
Hello.
Hey, this is Nikki, everybody. Hey, I'm producing for Mervyn this morning. Can you tell us a little bit about Druidism?
Druidry. Druidry. Well, Druidry is a nicer term for it because it's easier to say. So, Druidry is what's the word for it? The native spirituality of Britain, parts of the continent and Ireland, and it grew, as in the native spirituality of the Americas, Europe, Australia, generally all over the world. It always seems like the native spirituality always grew from the land. It came from the sky, it comes from the wind and the waters, the earth, the stones and the trees. It's in its simplest term, a nature-based spiritual path. It's not a spiritual path. It's a path. It's like all of them. They're all a path. It's one of those things you never ever get to the end of. You always learn, and when you learn, it helps you evolve. It helps you connect with the land and the sky and the trees, and it helps you communicate with the spirits of the land, sky, trees, rocks, the rivers and the seas, and that's in its basic terms. That's what it is, and you can normally, when I try and explain it, most people, when they ask, they just want a nice catch-all thing that they can attach to, that they've known or they've had some experience of somewhere down the line, something to connect with. So I always relate it in many ways to the Aboriginal people of Australia or the Native American people of the Americas. We're not the same, but we do things similarly. And even if we don't do the same thing, or we call it by a different name, we know what we're talking about. We can understand each other in what and why, without having to go to the in-depth explanations of what we're doing at any particular time. It's so yes, you do that, we do that, I understand. And it's just different names for the same kind of thing, and it's very earthbound. It keeps you connected. We have, and it always appears that we have lost a lot of our modern world has separated itself so much from the natural world that is causing much, in my opinion, of the problems all around the world, really. We separate ourselves from the outside. We separate ourselves from how our food is produced. We fill the sky with all sorts of nonsense, and we forget where we come from. And for me, Druidry was the path that took me back where I needed to be, because I'm rooted here in this land, and it connects me back to it. That's not quite accurate. I always felt the connection, but didn't have the language for it. And this has given me the language that I needed. It's given me the guidance that I've needed. It works for me. This is the path that I recognize, as from my ancestral ties. My ancestral ties are the ones that I know of most strongly are the ones from Wales and the ones from Ireland. I've got a foot in both camps because my father's ancestry was in Ireland and my mother's is in Wales, and Druidry there was the most, that was the path, that was the spiritual call, until things, went a bit wrong a couple of thousand years ago, with the Romans. Anyway, so because of those connections that I've got in the land there, this just called to me, and it was one of those things. It always called to me, but I wasn't ready to answer it until, I don't know, was it 5-6 years ago, when my whole world turned on a new on its axis, and everything opened up to me. So in a nutshell, that's what Druidry is. But you can't really pin it down. It's not a, how do I put this? With 10 different druids, you get 10 different paths. They're all fractionally different. There's always a little bit of a difference here and a little bit of a difference there. How you do a little bit of a celebration, every path that is walked individually, because we're free to take what speaks to us without having to be dogmatic about a particular ritual or a particular goddess or god. We have they're all out there, and we are allowed to access them as suits our own philosophy. It's all good. It's all good as long as you're respectful, and yeah, as long as you're respectful, that's the key thing. Being respectful, not only to the people around you, the people that are on a similar path, but respectful to the spirits that you work with, the goddesses and gods that you work with, and the one person that we normally forget, and that's to be respectful to ourselves as well. And it teaches you to do that. Respect yourself and how you're treating yourself in the world, because we can easily forget that one person. So yes, there are some good books, and that's one of the things I was going to bring up some pictures of some books, because Rob has asked me a couple of questions on Druidry on occasion, and I'm not sure where the information that was contained in the book or books he's read came from, because it bears. I have no recognition for some of that information, so I thought, I'll bring up a couple that are really, really good, which are really, really useful. But I haven't got the pictures now because they're in my computer, and because BeLive went all a bit woggedy, and that is a technical term, that I can't show you. So I am going to tell you, or I can run off and pick them up again and come back like I did before. But I think that's, now she's shaking her head because she doesn't want me to do that. Well, I just might.
You're so funny. Say, listen, we have another question, and I can't get it.
And I have a coffee.
Okay, well, take a drink. And I can't get it up on the screen for some reason. And it's coming from Meg Anetto, and she's asking, is it connected to the Irish at all? Druidry.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Ireland, Wales, Scotland, England, and into continental Europe. That whole area, Brittany, especially. And then further east and north, we start look. I'm bad with putting myself last. Putting yourself last isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's also not necessarily a good thing. It's what's necessary at the time. If you're putting yourself last, and which is detrimental to you, where everybody else could actually wait, then yeah, don't do it that way. If you're putting yourself first, where you could have waited and to the detriment of somebody else, then yeah, don't do it that way either. It's finding that balanced point where you can put yourself first or you can put somebody else first. Whatever's most needed at the time is the only consideration, really. It's not one or the other. It's the right thing at the right time, regardless of who it's for. Anyway, back to Ireland. Yes, Ireland. Anyway, further east and then into the north, east and north, you're starting with the Vikings and the Germanic peoples, and they were connected with Odin and Thor and the Norse gods. Further north, you had the Sami people of Scandinavia, who were still following their traditions. The reindeer herders. I've seen some documentaries about them, and they're fascinating people. Anyway, so but they're all connected in some way to the land that they're in, the sky that's above them, the land that's below them, and the rivers and seas that are around them. So yeah, Ireland for absolutely, definitely. One of the morning, Margaret. One of the Ogham Celtic tree alphabet that was developed in Ireland, that came from Ireland. There was it was originally 20 letters, and then another 5 were added as new language came into the lands, and as the Romans came in and language changed, new letters got added. And that's another that relates to quite an interesting point that some people make about Druidry, or modern Druidry as it's sometimes called, or revivalist Druidry as it's sometimes called. That how can we be sure that what we're doing is right, or we're following the right way of things? Because 2,000 years ago, things weren't the same, and not a lot of, and very little, if anything at all, was written down, because it was an oral tradition, like many ancient traditions are. And So how do we know? Well, there's some evidence with some of the Christian scholars in the Middle Ages. I'm saying Middle Ages because that's an easy one to. It was somewhere around there anyway. They got interested in the old spiritual ways and decided to record as many of the stories as they could find, as many of the traditions that they could find, and they did, and they wrote them down. Obviously, because of their own belief system, they wrote them down with a little bit of a Christian twist to them, a little bit of a Christian flavor, but they wrote down what they could, and much of that has survived. So we have some sources, written sources, of what happened, what we did, how we did it, the stories, much of the healing aspect of Druidry, because there's three different aspects, which I'll tell you about in a moment. The healing aspect of it, that developed into what we would normally, that was carried on more rather into the role of the wise people, the wise women of the tribes, the healers, the plant and herb lore that got passed down, and that's carried on, and there are a myriad of books available on herb lore. So that part of it is fairly well documented and can still be documented. Even if all the books went away, they could still be rediscovered because the plants are still outside if we go outside and have a look at them, which means going back and reconnecting with them. So, go outside. Anyway, so we do have some elements available to us. But what about the rest of it? Well, for me, it's not much of a problem to say that I'm doing anything right or wrong, simply because you can look at it from a couple of different ways. The OM alphabet teaches us that things evolve. So just for the sake of argument, Druidry never went away, and it stayed here for the last 2,000 years. What we would be doing now would still not be the same as what we did 2,000 years ago, because people change, people's needs change, people's relationship with the gods change, and so it would evolve anyway, so it doesn't matter. What was my other point? I've forgotten now. It was in my head and now it's fallen out.
Mervyn, take a drink of your coffee. It might come back.
Oh, that's a good idea. I may have to go and make another one. There'll be just a blank space on the wall for an hour. So,
Margaret Spooner has a statement here. I'll put it up for you to read.
Didn't catch the beginning. Will watch later, but I came in the perfect time to get messages for encouragement of my path that I'm on. Just had someone suggesting what I was doing was not coming from source. Thank you. If you feel it, then it is. It's as much as that. Nobody can feel what you feel. Only you can feel it. They are not you. As long as you feel that what you're doing is true to you, you're being respectful to those around you, and you aren't doing anything to the detriment of anybody else, then nobody can say that what you're doing is not right. Nobody has the right to say that. That's the kind of interference that is not right. You shouldn't do it. If I don't understand it, that's my problem. That's where I come in and say, well, I like to understand. Help me understand what you're doing. Help me understand why I'm feeling disconnected from that, why I don't understand. So that's the thing. We're all here to learn from one another and not dictate what one or another of us should or should not be doing. And that's the simplest way to put it, even though I didn't really put it in a very simple way. But I think you know what I mean. Just be true to yourself. That's all anybody can be. But that's not really that easy, because we've all got a million different influences coming at us from a million different directions all the time, because that's what the modern world does, where what we really, really need is to just, calm, take a moment, take a breath and have a drink of coffee and just relax and take the next step in at the right time, rather than just flying headlong down the freeway, crazy breakneck speeds where all of a sudden you don't know where you are anymore. So, yeah, take a breath. It's fine. Everything happens when it's supposed to, and we never get there early. We're never there early. Only ever exactly at the right time. We're never late and we're never early. So there we go. Have we got any more questions? Do stones behave differently if they are cut into certain shapes? Interesting one. The stones don't behave any differently. Some people say that if okay, let me start that again. The stones themselves have the same energy, whether they're cut into a star or a cube or a sphere, whatever it may be. The stone's energy is just exactly the same as it always was. The only difference is how that energy can be transmitted, or how comfortable it is to hold in your hand. So, no. If you want a more even transmission of a particular energy, then a sphere is the one to go for, because it's round. But that's all. Tumble stones, when you're holding them, the energy you're holding them, the energy that you would receive with a pyramid or a tumble stone or anything, is just the same. It makes no difference. It only really makes any difference. I've got an itch on my nose. Makes a difference when you're doing a grid, and even then, if you have the right, I'm trying to get away from the word intention. If you have the right request of the stones within the grid, it still won't make any difference, no matter what shapes of stones that you use. The shapes themselves can be more representative to what you need rather than what the stone needs to do, essentially. Yeah, that's it, really. Good morning, Robin. So essentially, yeah, I hope that made some sense. Thank you, Tracy. That's very kind of you. It's weird without you. I just want you to know that. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I just feel weird. I'm drinking coffee. Anyway, so yes, so stone-wise, I hope that made sense.
I have a question about stones.
Okay, lay it on me.
Is there a difference between using a stone in its natural state or using a stone that has been, say, tumbled or polished?
In some ways, you could say that raw. There are people out there that say raw is best. Always use raw. And I can see the point to that. I do like natural stones. But if you are going to go out into the world, I mean, just for the sake of argument, you want a piece of natural shungite. What's it called? Noble shungite, I think its name is, where that's the purest form of shungite that there is. It's noble shungite. And you want to go and get some, and there are, just for the sake of argument, nowhere in America has any, and you want to go and get a pure piece of rough noble shungite, you have to go to Russia. So it's not always practical, you know. I mean, we don't have much opportunity to go and dig them up. We can go to the beach, we can go to the river. Well, yeah. But then there's nothing perfect in this world, apart from perhaps me. Nothing at all. So it's realizing that, you know, there's an imperfection in everything. Again, and that's the main reason why you would go for a raw or a tumbled. It's your preference. Some people say that tumbled have, you know, the energy's a little bit different because it's all been rounded off, like spheres, like pyramids. Pyramids have points and so on and so forth. Spheres are smooth and round and all that kind of thing. But honestly, it's going to be your preference what you work with the most. Sometimes you have to work with the ones that you, if you want to work with a piece of Preseli bluestone, 99% of the time, the only ones that you're going to be able to find have been polished in some way, whether it be tumbled, whether it be an obelisk, and so on and so forth. So it's basically what you can get at the time. If you have a specific stone that you want to work with, you're going to have to work with what you can get hold of. And if what you can get hold of is tumbled or polished to a specific shape, then perhaps you may have to consider that you need that shape for a particular reason. There's, you have to consider the shape of it for yourself, not for the stone. So let's just consider a sphere over a cube. Spheres are just all round, and just everything's more even energy wise, where cubes are angular and have faces, so you're going to have to look at it in a completely different way. The actual energy is the same, only the shape changes. So I hope that made a little bit of sense somewhere along the line. Somewhere. So it's personal preference. Personal preference. It's like eating raw vegetables overcooked. No, it's not. What's it like? Walking barefoot or wearing walking boots? You know, if you prefer to walk barefoot, that's great, but you wouldn't want to be walking barefoot over jagged rocks. So, you know, you have to kind of take the best option at the time, pretty much. Have we got any other questions?
No, but I have one.
Okay.
I don't know. I
didn't do it.
This is kind of weird because I'm not on screen. There. Otherwise, they get this, voice in their face. Yeah. Right. When you were talking about Druidry, and you were talking about how the herb lore was passed down because it was actually written down, right? Or was it oral as well?
That was oral as well, up to a certain point, and then it would be written down. Okay. So I mean, we talk about herb lore, we talk about the wise people, mm-hmm. Then we start talking about witches and witchcraft, mm-hmm. which has developed into Wicca. So witchcraft is based in herb lore, which connects them with the Druids. I'm not saying that witches and witchcraft developed from Druidry, but there's a distinct and definite connection mm-hmm. with it.
That leads me to the question that I had in my head, and that is, in Druidry, were women and men both Druids, or was there a gender role played within that belief system?
As I understand it, as the teachings that I've been given understand it, and as the people, the Druids who I know understand it, male and female Druids were equal. There was no gender bias.
I knew it. All right. So if they were equal, then they were all known as Druids, right?
Mm-hmm. When it comes to the language, because we're talking modern English, mm-hmm. We get into the slight difficulties with translation because the old Celtic languages are completely different, and even the modern languages of modern Welsh and modern Irish is different than it used to be. So from a personal perspective only, using modern language, a druid is a druid, sort of. But if you want to differentiate between male and female, simply because one is a male and one is a female. You could have a druid and a druidess, and that term, I have seen that term in places. So, but a druid and a druidess there's no difference in their abilities or I mean a druid, a female druid can it all depends on what level of learning you're at. Essentially, it's got nothing to do with your gender. It's entirely to do with what you've learned.
And that is a earth-based belief system. And I've had this knowledge or this knowing without actually having any kind of written book to turn to validate it, right? Is that I really believe that earth-based belief systems, that both men and women had equality, and it just the difference was really determined on the amount of knowledge that they had and how they applied that knowledge.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that's it exactly. So,
doesn't it? Okay, for those of us out here in the world of service, and what we just talked about the equality, doesn't that make you feel good? Doesn't it validate how you've been feeling about, work and the things that you have come to know through your service, through your, whether it's healing or whatever you're using, that there is a way that the ancients knew that there was this equality. They already knew.
Yeah. I mean, we're over here, there's been this big hoo-ha about gender pay equality in various companies, big companies, small companies, whatever size company it is, and all the related nonsense that goes with it, and about women not being able to do particular jobs because they're a woman, they don't get the same pay as a man because they're a woman. None of that has ever made any sense to me. It's never ever made any sense to me. What? There are no words for it because it makes so not any sense. If you do a job the same as somebody else, then you have the same recompense, which is a good word. Write that down.
I will. I'll make note.
And I mean, a lot of the modern way of things doesn't make sense to me. My computers, but I'm trying. I do my best. So yeah. I mean, the ancients, all the ancients, as I've seen so far, there was no difference. Everybody worked together and everybody was treated the same. Now, that's not to say that there weren't dark druids. It wasn't to say that there would be some druids that were, on the dark side of things, because there were. Because you can't have light without the dark. There's always balance in the universe somewhere along the line. But in effect, in general, as the rule states, everybody was treated the same because we were all learning the same things. Did that make any sense? Did I take that too far? I don't even know.
No, you did just fine. I just forgot to turn off my mic again. Sorry if my cough got in there.
Yeah, it went me. Yeah.
Thanks so much. You have a couple minutes left if you want to
Okay.
finish up and give us your last words.
Okay. So, Druidry, if you want a couple of really, really good books, there's two by an author called Penny Billington, The Path of Druidry and Birch, Oak and Yew. They're really good books. Um, there's Druidcraft by Philip Carr-Gomm. So that's another good one. And a lot of us like working with cards, whether they be tarot cards, whether they be the Oracle style cards. So again, by Philip and Stephanie Carr-Gomm. There are three, I think. Yes, three card sets. Well, two Oracle card sets, and a tarot set, which is fabulous. And yes, I do have one, even though I'm not particularly skilled with the tarot at all. But it's just magnificent. And all these are coming from the Druid point of view. So there's the Druidcraft Tarot. It's a fantastic set. And then there's the two Oracle sets, which are the Animal Oracle, which is obviously based in animal lore, and the Plant Oracle, which is based, as the name would suggest, in plant lore and tree lore. So, though all those, not only are they just full of information and knowledge and really deep knowledge, they are the Oracle and Druid set, the tarot set, are just glorious to look at. Absolutely glorious to look at. So if anybody was interested, then those are my recommendations.
And can you put those as a list in on your fan page?
Yes, I will do that. I'll even put the pictures up because I can do that.
Yay! Good.
So yes, apart from the plant oracle, I haven't got that one yet. I must admit, I don't know why I didn't. Anyway, that's by the by. It's out there. It'll be on Amazon somewhere. So everything's on Amazon. Ah well. So there you go. I hope today hasn't been too horrific for everybody. And I hope everybody has a wonderful and glorious day. And yes, we'll see what next month brings, because I haven't got a clue at the moment. We'll just wait and see. I think we should just let it unfold as it needs to be. So have a blessed day, everybody, and we'll see you. Bye.